Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Waffle Press podcast retrospective, Avatar Legend of the Last Retrospective. I'm your host, Diego Crespo. With me today is my co-host, Matt Garingo.
That's me.
How's
I'm
it
the
going, Matt?
co-host. Things are fucking weird. We just, for those who don't know, we sometimes talk beforehand before we start recording, and I think we just went about 90 minutes just talking about bullshit, and we ended on a very depressing note about our culture. So, now we get to talk about Avatar.
Yeah, which there are no problems here.
No problems whatsoever.
All right. So, before we get into anything, I'm going to go over the structure of this podcast, and then we're going to talk about the big news that broke in the middle of this recording marathon, basically, because we've been doing pretty
Yeah.
good recording these. But how this show goes for first-time listeners is that we discuss 5 episodes of Avatar: The Last Airbender. This will change as we move forward in the Avatar series, but we do 5 episodes at a time, and we've been on a pretty good roll recording these, and we're like, you know what, that this is going to be an easy recording. It's going to be fun to talk about. There's going to be a lot of like digressions we could do with the themes and ideas and the characters, the production. And then we're all kind of teeing this up a little bit for the live action series. We might cover it, we might not. It might not even exist at this point because during the middle of this recording, the creators of Avatar: The Last Airbender and Legend of Korra stepped away from the live action Netflix production of The Last Airbender remake
This was literally announced
due
yesterday.
to creative differences. And it was a tantalizing project already, one that we were very vocally like, I don't know about this. And the one like olive branch of the situation was that like, well, the original creators are working on it, and now that's gone. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's probably just best to bury it.
Well, you seem to know more about why that happened than I do, because it was their statements were incredibly vague. Understandably, I guess they're trying to be a little diplomatic in what they are saying, but they basically just said like we were not given the creative control we were promised. We were not allowed to do what we wanted. Blah blah blah. Um, and I couldn't put it raised so many questions because it was that thing where we both were kind of like not super excited about the prospect of the live action series just because it sounded like they were just going to do the show again, and we were always like, hey, we already have the show, we don't need a live action show. So then to hear that there were creative differences over a show that's going to be based on a show that already existed, it raised a lot of questions. And so, what have you found out in the time since the announcement?
Uh, I'll read a little bit from Brian Konietzko's announcement, and then I'll say just what I've heard. It's nothing like huge rumblings, like not TMZ level anything. It's just kind of a fact of the matter. But first, a little bit of the statement is that Michael DiMartino and I recently chose to leave Netflix's live adaptation of Avatar: The Last Airbender, the series he and I created together in 2002. We will have no involvement in the project moving forward. This is probably the most difficult decision I have ever made, but there is no doubt in my mind it was absolutely the right choice. When Netflix brought me on board to run this series alongside Mike 2 years ago, they made a very public promise to support our vision. Unfortunately, there was no follow through on that promise. Though I got to work with some great individuals, both on Netflix's side and on our own small development team, the general handling of the project created what I felt was a negative and unsupportive environment. And I won't read the whole thing. It's available on his Instagram and like every news media outlet ever right now. For those that want to see the full thing, but the vibe I got even before hearing anything was that it sounded like he's being diplomatic, but he's also very clearly saying that this was not like a supportive endeavor from the
Yeah.
creator.
No, no, it's very read between. You don't even need to read between the lines that much. That it seems like there was definitely a lot of conflict going on behind the scenes with Netflix's management of the series.
But at the end of the day, you can only point so many fingers. We don't know exactly what went on. We weren't in those rooms, so I don't want it to be a whole gossip thing. But all I know is that apparently they wanted to recreate the series. The original creators, I should say, wanted to recreate the series and have it explore new directions with new characters. And basically, they didn't want to just remake it. They wanted to reimagine it and expand it in a way that would be fitting for a live action endeavor. And that doesn't mean that it was still the right choice to remake it or anything like that. But from my understanding, it does sound like they didn't want to basically go for the easy layup. They wanted to push the potential of a series that they birthed, basically. And Netflix has been very public about their attempt at discovering their next Star Wars. They want their Star Wars, their flagship franchise. And I guess they were the ones who were more enticing the creators to just kind of whittle it down and just like do what you guys did already. And they didn't like that.
That's insane to me. It's just it's so short-sighted and so just says a lot about what the management might be thinking at Netflix, because it's just been so weird where they've been very like, it was a big deal when Last Airbender finally made it to Netflix, which was only like a month or two ago, right?
Yeah, it's like, just blown up again.
Yeah, and it was like this weird thing of like something about that must have played a factor, because they really pushed it. It was really a big announcement, and I maybe either the metrics on the show weren't high enough, or maybe they felt that, oh, look how popular it is, we really should just do this again. Maybe that's what they feel confident doing.
Well, to make it even more confusing and complicated, this news only broke at the time of recording yesterday. This happened months ago.
This break?
This break off between the creators and Netflix, yeah.
Oh, wow. That's really...
Yeah, so that makes it even weirder.
So I assume that they just had like a meeting like within the last week and then walked off the project.
No. And apparently
so why did they
people
wait
are surprised that it took this long to come out and that it wasn't leaked to like outlets. Cause I guess it wasn't just backroom disagreements. You know what I mean?
Do you think there was maybe some haggling trying to go on to try and either get them back or see if Netflix would bite at all?
Maybe. Our friend and listener of the show, Ethan, brought up the Twin Peaks and Showtime with David Lynch, where David Lynch was off that project for like a minute there, and everyone was like, well, you can't do Twin Peaks without David Lynch. And they were like, okay, fine. And he still had he had more free reign than he did at ABC or whatever with Twin Peaks, but it was a little more difficult still than he probably would have hoped. So maybe Ethan brought up that this is their attempt at doing something like that, where they're saying, like, we're not getting what we were promised, so we're backing off. And they're hoping Netflix will bring them back into the fold. But I think that's a little optimistic, personally.
It's a little optimistic. And it's just a thing where it's like, as much as I do believe Avatar is those guys, I bet you the creatives at Netflix don't see it that way.
Mm-hmm. I think they're going to be very blindsided if they continue with this endeavor, to see just how supportive the fans are of Brian and Michael, the creators of Avatar.
Yeah, they have a very loyal following in terms of creators.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like that's the one thing they're known for. They're the few creators that like haven't pulled a George Lucas or anything where like their fans eventually turned on them. Even with Legend of Korra, which they oversaw, which is a very divisive show, it's not like people are like, they ruined it,
Mm-hmm.
It's like even then, like the villain in that story tends to be Nickelodeon.
Yeah.
And now the villain's going to be Netflix. And it's just incredibly short-sighted. And I think it might just be one of those things where no one was on the right page from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe it was a mistake to be like, let's redo the series, and then maybe they didn't realize that they were talking about two different things the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas maybe if they had pitched Netflix like, hey, we want to do another Avatar series, or we would like to tell Aang's story after the events of Last Airbender, or something like that. Like, just something different. Maybe there wouldn't be these conflicts, but I think that because they said we want to redo the series, Netflix and then the team behind Avatar just had completely different ideas about what that was going to be.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Part of me is a little grateful because there is the opportunity for this show to just kind of fade away now, right? The live action
Mm-hmm.
attempt, I mean, just because
Yeah.
sometimes
And they made it clear.
maybe things
They
that are
still,
animated can just stay animated too, you know?
yeah. Well, can let me understand this though. They still own the IP, right? Like they have like a weird ownership of that IP, correct?
I think so. It's very strange because like when we were talking about it before this recording, you mentioned that like Netflix basically just let it go. I mean, Nickelodeon just like let it go, right? Like,
Yeah.
and now it seems like they have enough control of it to also still be doing like the books and the comics, and I don't know if they're still doing video games,
Yeah.
but they were for a minute there.
Yeah, I don't think any of the video games were received very well, but
Yeah, yeah, but that whatever.
um, yeah, it's this weird thing because they both say in their statements that we're still doing stuff in the Avatar universe, but it won't be this series. And they are doing the Kyoshi. I mean, they're publishing the Kyoshi books, and I believe one of them's a co-writer on those books.
Oh wow. Okay, so then I think
And
they do have like the majority control of it at least, just not for this project any
yeah,
longer.
I just don't know the standing of it. And again, it's this strange thing where it like how did this get to where it was at? Like it was, I think it was misguided from the start, but then to suddenly have it all fall apart like this, it's like what were they thinking? And it also gets concerning where it's like Avatar, as we'll get into with Legend of Korra, Avatar really became the series that became popular with like the LGBT community, and you wonder if and they've taken it very seriously, the creators, to the point where like even Kyoshi now is in a gay relationship, and the comics are more overt about gay relationships, and but the animated series could never fully go there because they were made for children, and on television there were still at the time a lot of weird rules about how much you could show, and all these companies where it's like that have to answer the shareholders, they're always reluctant to push that envelope, which really shouldn't be pushing the envelope at this point, but it still is. But at Netflix, you could at least see being kind of free of like a lot of the broadcasting standards that would affect stuff like that. I mean, She-Ra recently had something like that, and that's a show that was definitely made for children. But yeah, it's this thing of I don't know. Like, were they reluctant? Like, did they want to go in and be like, all right, we want to explore some LGBT themes that we didn't get to explore when we originally made? Because the world's changed since Last Airbender came out. There's certain different norms. Is there and as we've discussed in this retrospective, there's a lot I think to explore in it, and for whatever reason, that I don't know how to say it. Like, it feels like maybe they wanted to push in that direction, and if so, maybe that was what Netflix pushed against.
I mean, it gets even weird. Like nothing about this is like normal, I think, but like it gets
Yeah.
even weirder when Netflix also does have this persona of being more like creator friendly, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and more like artistically driven, which it's a complicated idea in and of itself. Um, but this does kind of shatter that perception, I think, more than
Yeah.
like
Well, I mean,
any other production.
it's always been like a brand thing. I mean, it's it's always been fairly transparent, but I don't know. It's just because what are the other franchises that Netflix really has?
The
It's
Irishman. No,
like
Six Underground
no.
is launching a franchise now, but it's not going to be like a mega
Okay.
thing. It'll just be like Michael Bay and Ryan Reynolds want to do a movie together again. They can do Six Underground too.
Okay.
There you go. Maybe. Oh, what's that Chris Hemsworth one that just came out? Extraction. That's the new action franchise.
Was it a hit though?
As far as I know, it was a big hit. It got like a sequel greenlit like immediately.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, but like the ones that like I could say like had like cultural impact. It's like Bright,
Oh God, that's right.
which was I know like Bright is like their one big franchise, and like it was immediately rejected by people, but like was a lot of people watched it, and then they got Stranger Things,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I guess that
which
counts, kind of, right?
but that's also been something where I don't know, it's this weird thing too where we live in an era where we've never know that like they have the exact numbers on viewers on everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we don't know any of them. Whereas the ratings that like we that used to determine television were the system that everyone knew was flawed and wasn't accurate. But now we have the numbers exactly, and no one's allowed to see them except Netflix.
Not to
And
not to get into a whole thing, but I do have this little conspiracy theory that whatever the numbers are, it's like the day they come out, it's gonna fundamentally like cause an explosion in like how people make and create television. Because I think
yeah,
everyone's gonna realize that it's a lie. Like everyone kind of knows it's a lie by this point, but I think it'll become like an undeniable like matter of fact, and no one's gonna know how to move forward for a minute. But and anyway, that's
well,
that's
if the
a
numbers
conspiracy theory.
if the numbers were something they could brag about, they would release them.
Mm-hmm.
But they have not. So yeah, it's just this thing of so what I was saying with Stranger Things is I'm willing to bet just based on perception, Stranger Things has been a lower return on investment as things have gone on. I could be wrong, but it just feels like, as popular as it still is, it feels like nothing has hit with Stranger Things as much as that first season hit. Other than that, like you keep seeing this push where it's like I feel like they tried to push She-Ra really hard, and that like only lasted a few years. And I loved She-Ra, but it definitely didn't, reach the mainstream. Although what was weird was one of those shows where kind of like Breaking Bad, where the last season ends up being the one that's like really popular. So I don't know, maybe She-Ra will come back, which I would like. But they're also doing a He-Man series that is a continuation of the original 80s He-Man show.
What?
Yeah, and it's like Kevin Smith's like writing it,
Oh,
and Mark Hamill is going to be Skeletor, and it's got like this crazy cast, and it's like, all right, and yeah, I just can't think of like what else. And they recently launched the Midnight Gospel or whatever it was called from the guys who made Adventure Time, which I haven't seen, but it definitely wasn't an Adventure Time size hit, you know.
yeah, I've never even heard of that.
So, yeah, I know it like flew under the radar, and it's like I guess it's like more in a more adult animated show.
Oh, okay.
But still, I'm willing to bet they were hoping for bigger numbers. And yeah, I think they're struggling to find like a tentpole thing that they could be like, here is our franchise, because now all the other streaming services are launching with, look at all the franchises we have. And like The Wire and The Sopranos, which I mentioned recently were on Amazon Prime, turns out they were just pulled from Amazon Prime because now they're going to be on HBO Max exclusively. And I'm willing to bet that's happening to multiple things. And it's like you go on, if you use Disney Plus, it's like they have a whole section that is just their franchises. And I don't know, it's a weird moment. The Witcher is probably the other Netflix thing.
Oh yeah, that was a moderate hit, I think. Well,
Yeah.
the big problem with Netflix is that even if their new show is a hit or whatever, it's the sequel or follow up season that like they just stopped marketing, and I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't know what happens, but it's also what have they done where it was like a huge hit at the start and then the follow up was of better quality?
Not immediately, but the last season of Daredevil is like one of the best written television shows I've ever
definitely
seen. But
And that
everyone
one
phased out of
wasn't
it
really
by
their
that
fault.
point because of like the influx of the Marvel shows, and most of them were
Yeah.
not very good.
Mm-hmm. It was also like that by that point. It was like Disney was very clearly taking the Marvel stuff back.
Yeah. Oh my god, that's so tragic. Because that, fuck,
Yeah.
dude. Like, not to get into a whole other thing, but like, if I was teaching a class on television, I would make people watch all of Daredevil just to get to that third season because it's
Mhm.
so good. It is
Yeah.
ridiculous how good it is. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. That's gone now too.
But it's like but I also I just can't think of too many where it's like I think everyone agrees that Stranger Things season 2 is not as good as season 1.
Mm-hmm.
And I just can't think of the other shows like Mindhunter, which kind of got popular, which also seems to be over because of creative issues. But that's also because David Fincher is supposed to be like a maniac.
Yeah, yeah. I think that one, not to point fingers, that one might be on him more than.
Well, David Fincher was someone who literally had like I think he had like 3 projects set up with HBO, and all of them got shut down because he was so hard to work with. Like, I don't know. I don't know what's going on there, but it's just this thing of I don't know what Netflix is thinking, and I hope maybe there's a backlash enough to be like we got to rethink what we're doing with Avatar, because honestly I think Netflix might be a perfect home for Avatar if they did it right.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be a great place because I don't want to see it go to like another streaming service that's already got like 30 different franchises.
Yeah, yeah. It should be treated as a flagship. Nickelodeon
Yeah,
completely fucked it up on them for
I
themselves.
know.
Not even quality of any individual show or well, we'll get to everything on that eventually. Trust me. But like they had their Star Wars. Netflix is trying to get theirs, and it's all fucked up.
It's so weird where it's like maybe they just don't know what they got because it's just like Nickelodeon lets it go, and now they have their own streaming services for CBS, and like the only thing they have is Star Trek. And you would think Last Airbender would be perfect as like another series to put on there, but that's not going to happen. And so then the series falls into Netflix's lap, and you already have this like whole mythology. It's already all set up. You don't have to develop any of it, and you're fucking it up. Like it would be like if George Lucas just like handed Star Wars to someone, you know, and then they'd be like, he's like, I want to make another one, but I just want to be involved, and then like you fire everyone that's ever worked on Star Wars. It's just crazy to me. I just don't understand the logic here, and maybe it'll flop, and then something will happen because I like again I love Avatar enough where I would like to see it continue. I don't need it to continue, but I would like to see more stuff in this universe. I feel like there's just so much potential here, but I don't know. It's just a bummer in a lot of ways.
There's no real positive note to end on here. It's just there's a lot of questions left hanging. And we'll probably talk more about it as this continues because I'm sure more stuff is just going to come out about it.
Hey,
And
maybe
who
by the
knows?
time this comes out, they're already back on the project.
Yeah, yeah, who knows?
For
Or
being
they give it to the
optimistic.
Game of Thrones guys, who no one has any mixed feelings about.
That would be that would be like the cherry on top of just
They
bullshit.
do have a Netflix deal now.
Hey now, well they've lost like every deal they had after Game of Thrones.
Netflix is the one they still have. HBO canceled Confederacy because everyone was like, "We're living that,"
That's
and then
yeah, it's a bad idea.
so who knows? Who knows?
Well, but again, also to talk about that's to part of the conversation we had on Mike. We could say that they canceled it because of that, but it also feels like Warner Media is pulling away from the creative side. Like they really aren't trying to create new shows. It's weird. We're in a weird area right now.
Yeah, we're in a place where capitalism is eating itself, and no one, for some reason, no one's seeing it coming, except for
Well,
weirdos like us.
well, I think it's that debate of is everyone just crazy and is like it's like where if you're a con man or a liar, you have to believe your lie on some level. So like people who commit massive fraud will also think they're legit business people because you just have to believe it at some point. It's a weird like psychological thing. Is that what's happening, or do all these people know everything's about to collapse and they're just trying to pull up the ladder before everyone realizes it?
I would say it's the latter. Haha. I'm
Uh,
sorry. I'm trying to find joy wherever I can nowadays, but
yeah,
I
but
do
that's like
think it
that's
is
the more
the latter
depressing.
for sure.
That's the more depressing option. But it's
Ah,
the thing where it's just we are in the middle of a massive paradigm shift, and one that like I don't think society has gone through in a long time, like maybe since the first two world wars. And I don't think we know how to handle it. And so I don't know, it could be over real quick or it could just be the foreseeable future and then we're going to come out a different world. Like no matter what, we're coming out a different world on the other side. And I think that's the thing people are struggling with. I think people don't really grasp that no matter what, it's going to be completely different X number of years from now. Or it could be different by the time this episode airs.
yeah. I mean, it. Yeah. Who knows? Who knows?
Which is a much more difficult thing to think about than what the fuck is going to happen to the future of the Avatar franchise.
So to bring it back down to Earth, or should I say, Book Two?
Hey,
Um,
that's a bad joke.
we don't have answers to those big questions, but we do have answers to subjects relating to the 5 episodes we're talking about today on Avatar's retrospective: Appa's Lost Days, Lake Laogai, the Earth King, the Guru, and the Crossroads of Destiny. Okay, so Appa's Lost Days. Matt, what did you think?
Appa's Lost Days. Uh, I think also one thing I want to bring up. Remember, I think I mentioned in the last episode that I accidentally watched this one, thinking it was part of the last
Yes.
recording. I figured out why I did that because Netflix has grouped the two-parters together. So it listed the drill and the Serpent's Pass as one episode. So when I was counting, I accidentally counted Appa's Lost Day as the 15th episode.
Yes, and they also did it for the final 2 episodes of the season, The Guru and the Crossroads of Destiny. So on Netflix, there will only be 18 episodes listed. So I apologize, and I will be more wary of that for Book 3 when I give it the next rewatch, and I'll let people know at the beginning of that season's recording if there are any like discrepancies like that, because there might be.
Well, one thing I think that threw it off is that that was not the case with season one,
Mm-hmm.
where the two-parters still stayed two-parters. So I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
But Appa's Lost Days. This is one where we get to see what the fuck Appa was up to while everyone else was on an adventure. And it's frankly just a very sad episode.
It is horrifically sad, and it's great, and I love it dearly. But I also don't have that much to say about this one, if that makes sense, you know?
Yeah, I understand. Well, it's also one where it's more like it's not plot heavy. It's just watching Appa, and there's very little dialogue. We see Appa ends up in like a fire circus or something like that.
Yeah, it's
He
one of the
tears
Fire
the place
Nation
up.
colonies, I think, too.
He ends up at the Eastern Air Temple, where he meets a guru, who will come back later. We also get flashbacks to Appa's childhood, which is like really sad. That's probably the saddest image ever of Appa as a child, like teething on that one thing, and then him as an adult, like teething again and kind of like trying to relive his past. It's a pretty upsetting moment.
Yeah, directed by Giancarlo Volpe. Excellent direction in this, because
Who's done-
it is a very minimalist episode. It's kind of like The Desert, where there's not a lot going on like in the story sense, like you brought up, but the direction of like character and the environment is like really compelling and very, very touching when it needs to be too. Like Suki shows up in this episode again to help Appa with her Kyoshi warrior friends, and it's it's just such a relief when that happens too, because it's like
Yeah,
finally something
but it's that
nice.
thing of like where like something nice will happen and then it'll immediately the rug will get pulled out from under you.
Hmm.
And that's like what keeps happening because then like of course Suki and the Kyoshi warriors are attacked by Azula and are beaten pretty badly,
Yeah.
and she has to force Appa to flee so he won't get hurt in the battle, and he does, but he's also like heavily injured throughout all of this. Like it's not like he just flies around a lot. He's injured, he's captured, he's muzzled, he gets like hit by like arrows and shit. Like it's not great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a pretty heavy
Uh,
watch for anybody with like little humans alongside them watching this one. I would honestly
mhm,
say like if you're sensitive to like animal stuff, this one might be a little heavier for you.
mhm.
So just note that for
And
yeah.
the big ending is that he makes it the Ba Sing Se and is immediately captured by Long Fang.
Yeah, those what are those darn Dai
And that's
Li up
where
to, Matt?
and he leaves a footprint, which is what Momo found at the end of the previous episode.
Yeah, it's all just so fucking sad.
It's so sad. It's like very depressing. This won a Humane Society award though
Oh, really?
for its portrayal of the mistreatment of animals.
Oh.
So
Oh,
there you go.
this one also reminded me of The Last Jedi. I think you said the drill episode reminded you of Last Jedi because like the setup is similar to the end of that film.
Yeah.
This one kind of reminded me of the weird horse animal things that they
Oh
have there.
yeah.
And everyone was like, "Oh, see, it's just woke propaganda to highlight
Yeah.
animal abuse." It's not like it had anything to say about capital and the mistreatment of all living
Well,
things
it's
under
also
it.
like
Whatever.
also we're talking about like again, this is a cartoon show. What is like the easiest shorthand to be like this person's an asshole? Have them like mistreat cute animals. This is like classic short story shorthand, like there's no like propaganda hidden in, oh, you mean the guy who runs the horse race is actually mean to the horses? It's like, yeah, no shit. Like I can't believe that was a thing people discussed.
I know. And you know
It's
what?
like,
I'll go a step further. Even if it was like anti-horse racing propaganda, so what? Like,
yeah, but it's I just well, because the idea is a lot of those people believe that if you that if a story element is forced, then it goes against capitalism. It's like there's like all these weird levels of it where it's like that they aren't catering to me, the target demographic, and it's just there's all these like weird levels with that sort of logic, and I don't know. It's just this weird thing where like the target demographic is slowly realizing they're no longer the target demographic and they don't know how to handle it, and so now they're blaming everyone else. Where it's like they don't realize that they were catered to their whole lives. Now when they see other people getting catered to, they're like, "What happened to me?" You know, it's
change.
just
Change is happening.
it's
Let's
yeah,
hope it's for the better. But speaking of change, I feel like we can comfortably move on to Lake Lao Guy already.
yeah, probably. I think anything that we need to revisit, we could probably discuss here as well.
We're moving over Appa's Lost Days already. I do want to reiterate, I really like this episode a lot. It's just not a lot of stuff to discuss beyond that, I guess.
One thing I guess I haven't mentioned, I feel like there was some inspiration. Like, do you think there was some like Totoro inspiration for the look of Appa?
Yes.
Because it feels like that with like the big mouth and everything.
I think
How's
completely.
it?
There's a lot of Miyazaki stuff in this, and eventually, not in the Last Airbender, but eventually, there's a very obvious Miyazaki influence on an aspect of the series. I'll say, but Lake Laogai is where everything comes back to a head in Ba Sing Se. They've been kicking around the city for a while, and now the kind of conflict with the Dai Li reaches like a boiling point. And
It is kind of nuts that we find out the secret of the Diley, and then we have like 2 whole episodes between, like, figuring out what the fuck's going on.
Yeah, there's a real patience with this. Like, I think I brought it up a couple times already, but TV shows don't move like this often, if ever. Uh, and it really does have like the patience of like a storybook or something, you know, which is kind of refreshing. It functions and operates differently than like regular serialized television, while still having like quality episodic adventures that like flesh out the world or the characters more too.
I wonder if they had a guarantee for season 3 while they were making season 2. Because I feel like that would have made it more comfortable to try things that they try in this season.
Yeah, I'll have to look that up, and I'll bring it up next time because I don't want to spend too much time researching and chopping this up. But like, I wouldn't be surprised if you were on the money with that. But like Lao Guy,
This one, it feels like they're really, because like the other one definitely felt more episodic, where it was built where you could jump in at some point, and even if you hadn't watched a good chunk of Avatar season 1, you could still figure out what was going on for the most part. Whereas this, it's like this show expects you to know what happened 3 episodes ago.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Lake Laogai, which is where the Dai are taking their prisoners and basically brainwashing them like the fucking Manchurian Candidate.
Yeah, and there's this great shot of all the Judies, and they're
That was upsetting. That was depressing.
that was very depressing, but it was like also very unsettling. Obviously, you know.
Yeah. Well, it's like, well, for one thing, like Jet was brought there, and it's like, all right, you know, it's bad, but like at least there's like a logic to Jet being brought there. Mm-hmm. Where it's like he caused a disturbance, but like, what did the Judies do?
Yeah, we never get like a clear cut resolution for that, and this isn't a criticism. It's got me thinking like, what if it's like a Jason Bourne type thing where it's like they hate that they're there, but then they realize like, oh, they were like basically like through propaganda and like nationalism, like convinced to join this cause, you know? Spoilers for the Jason Bourne series, I guess. Which totally relates to Avatar: The Last Airbender.
I mean, I think a lot of this is lifted, like, I think the light thing might be lifted directly from the original Manchurian Candidate. And they say, like, the repeating things that the Judies say is also, I think, from the Manchurian Candidate, where they're all like, whoever the main character is the most noble man we've ever met, because that's what they're all programmed to say. Mm-hmm. Also, I think I've mentioned I have an extreme anxiety around brainwashing. I think I've mentioned that previously. It is one thing that like upsets me more than anything. So this episode got under my skin a ton.
No, it's really creepy, and it's a totally different like conflict from what the series has kind of been like handling so far. You know, it's no longer like I think. Writer-director John Carpenter has this thing where it's like the conservative threat is the monsters out there in the dark. The more liberal threats are like internalized and like the monsters are here, like inside the walls, you know?
Yeah.
It's a very creative way to explore like more of the resilient themes of the series about like power structures and institutions, and it's also an animated children's show that aired on Fridays.
It's legit secret police. And I mean, it's also, secret police in 2006, so this is like the Bush era. And this is right around the time where we all started agreeing that the Bush era sucked. Because there's like those first 4 years, first year where everyone thought Bush was dope, and then we had like 3 years where everyone's like, no, Bush is actually a hero because he's keeping this country safe. And then the last 4 years, everyone turned on Bush. But now Bush is fine again, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, hey, sure, he's a war criminal and further devastated the Middle East and human rights violations, yada yada. But
he founded ICE.
He founded ICE. But also, he's painting portraits of immigrants. So who can say if he's good or bad?
Yeah, every man's complicated.
I fucking hate
George Bush redemption arc.
No, he doesn't get one. Anyways,
All right, here's something though. What would Bush have to do to get a redemption arc?
I think liberals just want everyone to like them so much that they don't need like a motivating factor. I think they'll just welcome him into the fold.
I know. That's liberals, but I'm talking about like real people. Like,
Oh, people with like spines and virtues. I don't know. Like, yeah, I think he'd have to actually like shoot Donald Trump.
not that we're advocating for that.
Absolutely not. No, 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 no.
But yeah, that might be in the wheelhouse. He would have to. I guess I would say he would have to kill a dictator that was threatening the future democracy of the United States
Yeah, that'll do it.
in a way that sacrifices his own life. I think that would redeem him, like Yondu.
That's a really good movie. Anyways.
Yeah, it is. Yondu still trafficked children though.
Oh yeah, yeah. And but then he found out they were dying and then felt bad about it.
Yeah, that's why it was bad.
Yeah, not that he was trafficking children.
Yeah.
He felt bad. That's what really matters.
He felt bad and then still threatened to eat.
He was being funny.
He was being funny, yeah. I mean, Yondu did the right thing in the end. He died.
Yeah, it's kind of, not to get into the whole thing, but it is kind of crazy that one of Marvel's flagship franchises is Guardians of the Galaxy. And, like, yeah, it's got the Marvel quirks, but it's also got trafficking children as, like, one of the opening plot points.
Oh, yeah, no, they, for some reason, that one just is able to sneak in all sorts of shit that the other movies just don't bother.
Yeah, I don't get it, but I love it.
I mean, it really feels like that, like, every time, like, you see, like, a deeper thing in the Marvel movies, it feels like the executives didn't realize what was being put in the movie.
Yeah, like Captain Marvel being, like, anti-war is very odd for those films. I mean, there's problems with that in that film for sure, too. But, like, it's definitely
Captain
there.
Marvel being an American fighter pilot who's realized she's been brainwashed by a military-industrial complex and forced to fight a war against migrants. I mean, there's a lot you could do there.
But also, in Lake Laogai, that you brought up the reappearance of Jet, who also makes his series exit in this episode.
Yeah, he dies.
He dies, but it's also a little ambivalent at first.
Well, I should say that the Avatar Wiki says he's dead.
Yes, no, he's definitely dead, and they definitely teed up for that. This is also the reunion of Appa and Aang. Appa comes in to save them because Zuko releases Appa after a heavy conversation with his uncle.
That's probably one of the best scenes in the show, where Iroh confronts Zuko, and Zuko's like, "I gotta kidnap the bison," and Iroh, like, for like the first time, really raises his voice.
Mm-hmm.
We're just like, and then what? Like, just the way he delivers that line is amazing.
Yeah, no, like I wasn't like shaking in my boots or anything like that, but I was just so engaged in that scene because, Iroh just spells it out perfectly. Like, this is the point where Zuko's really going to have to start confronting who he is and what he wants in life, because season 1 was him trying to achieve something that was no longer like he didn't realize it, but he was not going to be welcomed back into like the legacy that he was promised at birth, basically. Season 2 is him basically just trying to survive, and now it's like, okay, you've survived, and now what are you going to do with your life? Like, what are you going to do now that you're here? Because you can't keep going backwards. There's nowhere left for you to go backwards at this point. We'll get back to that too.
He ultimately tosses away the blue spirit mask.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jet dies.
And Jet dies, yeah.
But it's also like, again, you're right. I think it was just like, you probably can't say a child died in a children's show. That probably pushes your show into a certain area that maybe wasn't okay in 2006.
Yeah, I mean, not only does the child die, Jet is murdered by like a 40-year-old man who basically spits on his like body by saying like, "You foolish boy, like you've done this to yourself." And it's like, that's not only is that harsh in like any capacity, it's really harsh to someone you just murdered.
Yeah.
So I get it. I get why it's a little ambivalent here.
Well, it's like also, but it ends up being darker. It's one of those things where like they tried to like make it not as awful, but it ended up being significantly darker. And because it's like he's like, "No, I'll be okay." And then we set up earlier that Toph can sense if someone's lying based on the vibrations of their heart or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember the exact reason. And then she like just like whispers he's lying, and it's just like Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's heavy. And I
And long
got
shot.
this is a nitpick. I got a bone to pick here for the following episodes, but I want to bring it up now that Jet's body and the Freedom Fighters are never seen again. And I get it because the show is like we basically just like steamroll straight to the final conflict in the season, right? And so there's a lot of ground to cover. So I get why it's not like covered moment to moment in that sense. But also when they're trying to expose the Dai, it's like, hey, why don't we bring the body of the child and the other children to the Earth King? Because this is kind of bad. This is pretty. It's not like definitive proof, but also it is a dead child, and there has to be like an investigation done there. So I don't know. That's something I've always questioned about.
Well, it almost feels like they're ending it where it's like the ending of this almost implies that Smellerby and Longshot are also going to die.
Yeah.
Which they do not. They appear in the comic book.
Okay.
So they came back. Still very loyal to the Earth Kingdom for some reason.
Huh.
I feel like this would change that.
I do too.
But hey, I didn't write it.
Yeah. Also, what hints that they might have met unfortunate demises is that the Dai come out chasing the gang from the same hole that they escaped, which Longshot and Smellerby were defending. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I could see someone saying that, oh yeah, they died there, right? And I would have completely bought that if you told me.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a bad assumption, but somehow I guess they made it out.
Yeah, I mean, hey, yay! Less children dying is a good thing.
Maybe they just spent the rest of the war in prison.
I could see that. Yeah.
Maybe after the events, which we'll get into, maybe the Dai stopped brainwashing people.
Yeah, then they just started taking them.
Yeah.
That's totally believable. But yeah, we'll get to that right now. Also, the reunion of Appa and Aang, which leads us into Chapter 18, The Earth King, where they're basically fugitives at the beginning of this episode from the Earth Kingdom and the Dai, and basically have to run up to the Earth King and make their case for not only to help out against the invasion against the Fire Nation, but also prove their innocence and that the Dai are like domestic terrorists.
Yeah.
So
they basically have to invade the Earth King's palace.
Yeah, and it's like this amazing action scene. It goes on for like 10 minutes. It's crazy. It's like half the episode.
Well, this is one where I think I mentioned
escalating.
I think I mentioned in when we did the first season that I could see how you adapt the first season into a feature-length movie. This one, this would be. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it would be significantly tougher. Because there are like 3 false climaxes and like a bunch of huge battles at the end and then more story. This season is just so dense with the directions it keeps taking. And I say that in a good way.
Yeah.
It's like they used every minute of television for something important.
Mm-hmm. And I think I brought it up before, but like when I first watched this as it aired, I wasn't super into the first half of the season. Mm-hmm. And then the second half, everything like in Bossing Say, like immediately won me over. Yeah. And now I'm just like, I was fucking stupid and insane. Like, what am I talking about? This is all great, but like, really, this back half stuff, like, not to spoil any thoughts I have for the third season, but someone could tell me that this is the best Avatar's ever been, and I would probably agree. It's just fucking fantastic. And we're not even talking about the last 2 episodes yet. But yeah, so they go raid the Earth King like palace, and they're just like taking on onslaughts of guards and people, and they're like, "Sorry, no, we're really on your side." And it's just like I could see how that would make a bad first impression.
It's a hell of a gamble. It's really suspenseful because it's literally like they only have one shot, and it's like they're basically turning themselves over ultimately if they don't succeed. Zuko also falls ill because the sad boy is so there's such a gulf between the image of himself and what he actually is that he like can't handle it, so he gets sick.
You sound like you're conflicted about this.
No. I mean, it's
Okay.
I kind of love it as like high drama. Like it's ridiculous, frankly.
Yeah, no, it's
But
like fantasy melodrama. That's totally what it
yeah,
is.
I love it in that it actually went there. Like this is like a good version of that. Like the bad version of this is like a woman dies of a broken heart or something like that, which is like stupid.
I like that too. But
No,
anyway,
no, no
um,
one dies of a broken heart unless
it's
you like actually have your heart carved from your body. It's not how that
it's
works.
high fantasy, and that's why it works.
I guess, but it's like I need a little more than just broken heart.
Okay, okay, okay.
This is better
But
where it's like, oh, they're in a coma because they're literally so in such conflict with themselves that they can't handle it.
yeah, yeah,
Which
it's
would
a good
probably
way to like
happen.
internalize that conflict.
Yeah, if you could like wield fire, that I could see that happening. If I got a lot going on inside.
Yeah, he's been through a lot, and it's a nice parallel between him and Aang. Aang finally like reuniting with Appa, and after having lost Appa, that was kind of like him like taking in the brunt of everything he's gone through, right? Like that's why he like
Mhm.
breaks down at the end of the desert episode, and now he's like basically back on top of the world. And where Zuko, he's finally letting that same trauma in and confronting it, and it just his body's like doesn't know how to handle it.
Yes,
I
his
love
body
it. I
just like
love it. I'm
shuts
glad we're on
down.
the same page about that.
It's like when Dr. Loomis had a heart attack the moment he defeated Michael Myers.
Yeah.
Because he no longer had a purpose in life.
Oh man, I was waiting for that to come back.
Die! Die! Die, Michael! One of the
What a
best
film.
moments. I know.
um,
What a masterpiece of 10 minutes or whatever.
yeah, it's not very long. That movie's not worth watching, but that scene is.
That
Anyways,
scene is just incredible.
yeah. And so they have to
I
basically go
like,
about a little investigation with the Earth King, who has a pet bear,
yeah, the
just a
pet
pet
bear,
bear.
he loves the bear. But I think the thing that's hysterical to me is how bad Longfang's lies are. Where they're like, see, there's a Fire Nation trail. And he's like, nah, that was just some construction thing we were doing. And they're like, there's a Fire Nation logo on it. And like, he doesn't have any, like, follow-up.
No, I think he says like, "Oh, well, it's imported, of course."
It's like, you can't trust the... Yeah, like, but it's just, like, the worst attempt at lying. Longfang didn't do a good job. But maybe, he's kept the Earth King in his palace this whole time. Maybe the guy just didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a little bit of, like, the Last Emperor vibes. You ever see Last Emperor?
I haven't.
Where he's like, he doesn't really know that World War II is going on. Because, like, the military is taken over at that point. They keep him, like, they just let him do what he wants in the palace. He does kind of look like the Last Emperor. Now
Maybe
I
that
think
was
about it.
the goal.
Maybe that was the inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Things worked out a little better for this guy than the Last Emperor, though.
Oh, okay.
Not the
Spoiler
spoiler.
alert.
Sorry, I spoiled history.
No, it's fine. It's fine. But then Zuko wakes up and he's happy.
And now he's happy, and it's the most disturbing thing you'll ever see.
Yeah, even Uncle's like, "You seem different.
Yeah, he's just
This is weird."
smiling and happy, and how he likes serving tea to fucking people.
Yes, let's serve some tea. I just like how happy Uncle is. That makes me
Hey,
happy when Uncle's happy.
he finally won him over, and I'm sure everything will stay the same, and nothing wrong will ever happen.
Yeah, and I like that immediately. That's basically both established and paid off.
Yeah.
Like the ending to that cliffhanger leading into the 2-part season finale is really great because it's like, wow, our dad. We can go see our dad now, Katara, Sokka. Oh, well, only one of us can stay here because we have to help the Earth King prepare for the invasion with his generals. Okay, Katara will stay. Sokka will go. Sokka and Aang are going to go on a road trip because the guru that Appa ran into attached a note to his horn before he was taken, and now the guru is going to help Aang learn to master the Avatar state. And
Yeah.
then
Well,
Toph is going to go reunite with her parents who are in town. Only her parents are not in town. It is the bounty hunters that have been following her all season.
put her in a giant metal box.
Yeah. And then the Dai Li pledge their loyalty to Long Feng instead of the
All
Earth
right, I
King.
gotta say, sorry to make two comparisons in one episode, but them having that metal box ready is a lot like Dr. Loomis having that metal net,
Oh
that
my
chain
God.
fence, the chain net hanging above the ceiling that he drops on Michael Myers.
Die, Toph.
Die!
Die.
Die, Top! Die!
Toph is basically Michael Myers. And
A little
that's-
bit. There's one part where she's like literally surfing on the earth, and that's
Yeah.
like kind of nuts.
Much like Michael Myers.
Yes, this is the exact thing Michael Myers did.
I mean, that's basically the plot to Halloween 6.
I'm just saying she's unstoppable.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then we get the reveal that the Kyoshi warriors are being impersonated by Azula, Mai, and Tai Li. Maybe I have this grammatically wrong because they keep not putting a comma on the Wikipedia page between Azula and Mai.
No, I'm pretty sure that's Wikipedia fucking up.
All right, because they've done it like 3 times so far.
That's so weird.
But it's like a thing. I think literally Sokka says something like, "Everything is gonna work out now."
Yeah, and the moment he says that, it is just like, dude, like, Sokka is a dope, but even he, I feel like, would know not to say that. I'm not a big proponent of karma or anything like that, but in a fictional television program, like, come on, dude, like, don't do that.
Although it's also a thing
There
where it's
are
like
rules
everything.
to this.
They literally made every wrong decision because if they had just stayed together in this last moment, none of the events would have happened. You know?
Yeah.
Like, if they had just hung out for a little while longer, they would have noticed that the Kyoshi warriors were a bunch of fakes.
But, like, how you can't predict something like that.
I guess, but it's also this weird, like, reinforcement of, like, the greater themes of the story where the moment they aren't together is when things finally go wrong.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm. And, it's we will get into it as the series progresses, but a big thing is that it's not really about Aang mastering the 4 elements. It's him bringing the 4 nations together,
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's really what's going on here. And the one episode where they're all separated is when the thing turns and everything just falls apart.
But sometimes that conflict can breed ingenuity. It's like the lie you hear about capitalism, except true this time. Because Toph learns to master metal bending.
All right, sure.
I don't know. I'm grasping at straws here. I don't know why. This is all terrific shit.
This is great. No, I think it's just that it's so, like, we would just be like, remember that moment? That was great.
Really,
Right.
this might be my like, I don't know. The Zuko alone is my favorite episode. I think it's just going to remain that way. But this last 3 might be like what I consider the best. Like,
Well, this is the Empire Strikes Back. This is the big climax,
yeah,
This is where everything finally turns.
And again,
And-
like how I brought up the creators like learned the best lessons from Star Wars and like expanded upon them with their own like methods and mythology. This totally understands why The Empire Strikes Back works. It's not just a chase movie. It's not just they lose. It understands like the fundamental of like why the characters made these decisions that brought them to their failure.
And I think what makes this even more harsh, though, than Empire is that this one definitely dangles in front of you like a happy ending. Whereas Empire never really does that. Empire doesn't go like, hey, look, if you just do this, if everything just works out, everything's going to be fine. Whereas this, it's like, we now we have the Earth Kingdom on our side. We're ready to invade. We know that the eclipse is coming. It'll be the perfect time. If we just do that, the war will be over. And then it's like, nope. This also has one of those things I really love on these type of shows where it's like you have all these different factions kind of on their own paths, where it's, not only do you have the main characters all going on their own journeys, but you have the bounty hunters, you have the Water Nation soldiers who are sailing around, you have the Dai Li, who make it very clear that while the military is loyal to the Earth King, the Dai Li are still loyal to Long Fang. And and then we have, Azula disguised as the Kyoshi Warriors, where it's all mixed up. It's great. Well, this implies, we'll find out later this isn't true, but this does kind of imply that they killed the Kyoshi Warriors.
I know. I thought Suki was gone by this point.
That would have been
because we had also just lost Jet. So in my mind, when I first saw it, I thought that was it. I thought they were going there.
That would have been nuts.
Yeah.
Frankly. That would have been.
I guess spoiler alert. We do try to keep spoilers to a minimum because we want people to watch the show for the first time, and we don't want to give things away that are ahead. But I think it's safe to say that we're discussing the Kyoshi Warrior circumstance very specifically for reasons. I don't know. I don't want to give anything away, but they're not.
Well, I feel like if you were worried about Suki, you would have gone to the fan wiki immediately. So yeah. I don't think we're spoiling, because I will do that sometimes. Where if I think a character might get hurt, I will look it up just so I don't hurt myself later. But the titular, this episode's called The Guru, so I guess we should talk about the Guru a little bit.
Yes. What are your thoughts on the Guru?
Well, he's got to help unlock the 7 chakras. I don't know. It's a little weird because he's like very Indian coded. You know what I'm saying?
I wouldn't even say coded. I would say like they just kind of did that. And for a series that's been very good at managing like cultural interpretations or at least like inspirations, this one feels almost kind of lazy.
A little, if we just seen other representation before this point,
Yeah, because he's also the only character in the series that's that dark skinned.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. There's a lot of criticism about this character, and I think the creators understood that because this is also the only instance of the character appearing like in a large capacity. Yeah. There is one brief instance of his appearance, but it is not like a big thing later. And I think they understood that they kind of miscalculated on this guy, which makes his appearance later even weirder, but we'll get there.
Well, it's weird, because he ends up like he definitely does a Yoda thing with this ending,
Yeah.
Where he's training Aang to unlock all the different chakras, which also, I don't believe chakras have been mentioned up to this point.
No, it is a little Deathly Hallows.
Yeah. Well, even then, it's like, we just didn't have a name for the Deathly Hallows.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, it's just like, for me, it's something where I feel like maybe it would have been mentioned earlier, or could have been mentioned earlier. Something maybe a live-action series could fix if you allowed the creators to change things. Maybe introduce this stuff a little earlier, maybe make Indian-coded characters a little more common, so it's not just the one mystical guy.
Yeah. That's really, like, I was just saying how, like, this might be, like, what I consider to be the best of the Avatar series, bar none. But also, yeah, this is, like, a genuine issue I definitely still have with it. And it's not resolved, so I do definitely still have mixed feelings about this character.
Yeah. It's something where it's like, I love the series, but, like, anything you love, there are stumbling blocks.
Yeah, and I will say that the conversations he does have with Aang, though they are not really like, and again, for this series, it is very odd that it's not set up or established early on. I do find them very compelling, and I do think there's like a real appreciation that they continue to show for like one's like self-worth and individuality, and how like we all connect to the earth, and how like it's all important to maintain and to to grow in like a healthy capacity or manner with our relationships and just all of existence basically.
Another thing that again it learned all the right lessons from Empire, where it's like it gets really introspective, which is something you really don't see in children's media that often. I do like that Azula is playing like 3-dimensional chess with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Where she like has her, because I actually forgot that moment where Maya and Tylee are saying like, "Oh, I hate wearing this Kyoshi warrior get up and fooling people." And so for a second there, I was like, "Oh man, this is some really bad dialogue." And then I was like, "Oh, they're trying to fool the Tylee," which is a really good moment.
Yeah, that's a very fine line between like, is that too silly? No, it's about right.
No, well, it's silly, but then they were doing it on purpose, is what makes it great.
Oh no, I know, but like even then, there's like you can't overplay that. It still has to be like the right amount of believable. And given those characters, you can kind of get away with more because Tylee, she's not like an airhead, but she's very happy-go-lucky.
And this is one where it's like
I could buy that coming from her
over and over again. It's just people being like giving Azula like all the information she needs.
I know,
to like
it's so
fuck up
bad.
everything. Where it's like the Earth King's like, "Hey, don't worry, we're gonna invade when there's the eclipse," and then it's like, "Oh, the Daily, we don't need them." And then the worst for me is when Katara stops at she wants to get some tea on the way back. And she walks in on Zuko and Iroh, who at this point, Zuko's now like happy Zuko, but she doesn't know that, so she immediately runs to warn the Kyoshi warriors, and all she does is tell Azula what's going on.
I know. Azula doesn't even have to try.
I know.
Like this entire season, she's been coming up with all these cunning schemes and plans to like track people down and invade Ba Sing Se. And then the moment she's undercover, it's just like, oh wow, they literally did all the work for her.
Not to make another Game of Thrones comparison, but it is a lot like Ned Stark in season 1, where he's just like playing into everyone's hand.
Oh, I know, the dope, my favorite dope in the history of dopes.
He was an honorable man, and look where that got him.
No, he was ride or die. I think I saw that Twitter post going around for a while. Like he was the OG ride or die.
You know what though? I gotta say one thing about Game of Thrones that has been a negative impact on the culture is that I think people took the wrong lesson again, which is that you shouldn't believe in anything because you have to play the game.
Yeah. And I'd blame that on the ending because the ending so obviously has to be that you break the game because the game is killing everyone.
Although it's so obvious, you would think that the people that were still watching it by the end would at least pick up on that.
I know.
But,
Katara then gets captured, and Zuko and Iroh are brought to the Earth Kingdom capital under false pretenses, and Zuko was captured by Azula and the Daily when he challenges her to an Agni Kai, which is like a one-on-one showdown. Well, we know that. We've seen that in the show already. But like, I like that he's like, "Yeah, I'm challenging you," and she's like, "No, we're not doing that right now." Like he's not even worth her time, and that's kind of sad.
Yeah.
But Uncle gets to be really badass, and he's like, how I got my nickname Dragon of the West? I remember that in trailers when the season finale was like being teed up by Nickelodeon, and just like losing my mind because we've never seen that before. Someone actually breathing fire like a dragon. So when Iroh did it, I was like, whoa, like whooping and hollering in my seat, like, oh, there he goes. That was my end game.
You're doing, oh yeah.
That was so fucking badass. Like, I mean, we talked about it before too, but like at the end of the day, some of this stuff is just really badass.
Yeah. No, the fighting is just so excellent. Like that's the thing you forget, which is what's funny, where it's like the show is just so good as like a story that you forget that the action also rules.
Yeah, especially in this finale. There is just like these crazy new inventive like combos and moves because these characters are like teaming up and everything too. Iroh teams up with Aang, Sokka, and Toph, and it's just like, whoa, like these dynamics are like so exciting, and like the season didn't need like new life injected into it by that point, but they keep pushing it even further into like just awesome territory.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
And
to your point about how like this season finale hits a little harder than Empire, maybe because of how close things were to working out. It gets even more tragic when you realize, like, oh wow, even if they stopped Long Fang and Azula, like the Daily still control Ba Sing Se, basically.
I know.
Like
Yeah.
they've lost before they even got to this final showdown.
Well, another thing that also fucks it up is that you kind of realize at some point, all right, this is going to be the bad ending. But when Iroh goes to meet with Team Avatar, you're like, all right, this is the moment where all the team, like, where finally everyone's going to unite. So even if they lose this battle going into the next season, they'll now have Iroh and Zuko on their side, which will like help them, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, nope, that doesn't happen either.
Zuko and Aang are both presented with having to make decisions that will change their future. Aang is told by the guru that he has to leave all earthly attachments behind to master the Avatar state. Zuko, after attempting to escape with Iroh, Aang, and Katara, Iroh tells him that he's at the crossroads of his destiny. And then Azula shows up and's like, "You could help me win today, and you'll restore your own honor." Basically, like you won't need anyone else's approval. Like you'll redeem yourself in the eyes of the Fire Nation, you know. And so naturally, both of these people kind of get screwed in their decision making. Zuko
Yeah.
doesn't realize he's screwed until later. He thinks he's making the right thing right now.
Well, I think what happens is Zuko, as much as Iroh broke down what he was originally going for and told him like, "Hey, stop fucking around," I think Zuko was comfortable not making bigger decisions anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like he was comfortable to just sell tea in Ba Sing Se for the rest of his life. Like that's really where he ended up as a character, which, you know, is better, but it also isn't preparing him for the moment where he is going to have to make that decision, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Zuko didn't choose the right path when he got sick and went into a coma. He just chose no path, which isn't really a choice.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes to bite him in the ass in this episode, although he does not realize it.
And it is so frustrating every time I watched it. I want to shout out my friend Angie Han, who threaded her entire viewing experience of The Last Airbender for the first time. And I was waiting for her to get to the season 2 finale, because the moment this happened, she tweeted out the "I was rooting for you" gif from Tyra Banks. It's just like, yeah, that's about right. We were all rooting for you, and Zuko makes the wrong decision, and it's very frustrating even now, because like they totally could have taken Azula. Like it's so clear, like they finally could have like won against her, but no. Then the Dailies show up, and it gets even worse, and Aang goes into the Avatar state by abandoning his attachment to Katara, and then gets shot in the back by lightning by Azula, and it's he's basically dead for a second, like he's gone.
Yeah.
And then Katara saves him with the water from the North Pole.
Yes.
The super spirit place. I forget if it has a specific name, but
well, there's also
not great.
There's also that moment where it's Katara and Zuko and they almost bond for a second.
Oh yeah, and then the Zutara shippers just screamed into their pillows.
Yeah, I gotta be honest. Like I said on rewatch, that ship makes a lot more sense on rewatch.
It does.
Before,
I'm not even making fun. I get it. I'm not pro it, but I get it.
Yeah, I'm not pro or against. I believe I leave it in the decision of the characters.
What else to say about the Crossroads of Destiny?
Well, fucking Zuko fucks up, you fuck.
Yeah, he fucks up real bad. Mm-hmm. But
and I like that there's not even Iroh doesn't even have like a moment where he's like sad about it. He's just like so disappointed in Zuko. Like he's just angry at him.
Someone brought up an interesting little parallel thread. You know, like on Twitter, people like cinematic parallels, and sometimes it's just like they have the same colored shirt, and it's just like that's not. That doesn't mean anything. But I think there was actually a genuinely interesting one that I can't remember who tweeted it out, but they brought up that the only times that Iroh looks away from Zuko like in the series, is when he's burned by his father because he can't stand to watch him in pain, and then when Zuko decides to betray him and the Avatar. I just thought that was nice. I mean, sad. It's sad, but like it's a cool little note.
That's interesting.
But yeah, it's fucking tragic. It's really really sad because Iroh's never done that for Zuko. Like he's never looked away from him. He's always been there for him, and now like Zuko's tossed that all away. And even at the end of this episode, I just want to say that like he's with Azula, and they're like, yeah, we've done it. Like we've 100 years, and we finally conquered Ba Sing Se, and Zuko not feeling on top of the world still.
Yeah, you can tell he's not happy about it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's a bummer. And again, this is did this do this first where, you know, you kind of set up a redemption arc for the hero, and then at the last second it's like, nope, like I'm gonna be a fucking asshole again.
It might be one of the first big instances. I don't know if I ever saw something that did it before.
I'm sure it happened in anime before.
Oh yeah, like all this
it's
stuff
almost
that happens in this probably did happen in anime, like in some capacity. But like, you know, there's that big Last Jedi one.
Yep.
You've brought up another show that it's happened in that I don't want to mention because I haven't seen it even. But like,
goddamn,
so I don't know. It's definitely the first time
so upsetting.
I remember it happening, and yeah, I was upset. Like I was visibly upset, but it was you know, it's just so good that I was in love with it. This is the shit right here. That there's nothing else to say about it.
It's a shame that making the Star Wars sequels broke everyone involved, because Daisy Ridley's performance in Last Jedi is so good. Mm-hmm. When she realizes Kylo's not going to come with her.
Oh yeah, she's fucking terrific in that. I mean that everyone's acting game steps up so astronomically in Last Jedi, and not that I even have mixed feelings about them in Force Awakens, but like everyone's so good in Last Jedi because they're working with a real filmmaker. But whatever.
Yeah, but Diego, the light speed thing doesn't make any sense. It breaks the whole universe. Movies are ruined. Star Wars is ruined.
The music's called Jizz. The music in Star Wars is called Jizz.
Is it? Aren't there like subgenres of jizz that's like one of them's jizzum?
I don't know. Are there?
I'm gonna look it up.
Jism.
Yeah.
I'm a little more into that post neo-realist jizz. Jizzleism.
Jizzwallers. Here's something that's weird. On the canon Wikipedia, Jizz is only credited to the Max Rebo band. But in Legends, it's the Max Rebo band and Figrin Dan and the Modal Nodes. What the hell?
I don't know what any of that means.
Figrin Dan and the Modal Nodes?
Oh, are they the ones from the first Cantina?
Yeah, they're the Cantina band.
Okay.
And Max Rebo's the Blue Elephant guy.
Yeah, on the barge, right?
Yeah. Figrin Dan and the Modal Nodes was an all Blith music band specializing in the genres of jizz and jats.
Has anyone checked on George Lucas?
So here's the thing about jizz. Did George Lucas know what he was doing when he decided to name it Jizz? Because he thinks it's funny. Or does he not realize that what jizz means, and he just was like, replace jazz, but instead of an A, put an I?
I feel like he just replaced the A with an I, because he seems like the kind of dork, whom I love, but the kind of dork who doesn't realize when he's being funny sometimes. Because I've seen those prequel documentaries.
Yeah.
So I definitely feel like he didn't realize what he was doing.
When he threatens to bop the guy on the head?
Yeah, I'm going to bop you on the head. Did you see that edit John Boyega made of that?
Yeah, it's the best.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Baccarat is another genre.
I just, now, my headcanon is that the Max Rebo band are the only people that play jizz in the universe, and that everyone's like, you don't like no one else calls the music jizz. They're just the ones that are like, yeah, we're a jizz band, and everyone's like, you don't have to keep saying that.
Stop saying that.
Well, let's see what else happened then. Because I don't want to like just skip over anything, but like
No. Yeah, I was having fun with
no,
jizz.
yeah. Don't say that.
Just getting jizz all up in this place.
No. There's just a lot that happens in this episode. And this is also not a spoiler, it's just prepare. This is the last time we see Long Fang because
Long Fang should have gotten his.
I would have liked to have seen Long Fang again, yeah.
Put him in a cannon. Launch him.
He doesn't have to die, he just have to like be beaten.
They should just beheaded him like right there.
Good lord. I mean, she could have killed him. Azula basically kills like a lot of people. We just don't see it.
It is like a Game of Thrones moment where she's like, you weren't even playing the game.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's pretty dark.
Azula's pretty evil.
Yeah. But I like her.
Yeah, she's fun.
Yeah.
Not really.
And I do. Well, no, she's a fun character, but she's not real. Thankfully.
Yeah, she's not. She's a fictional character, but she makes me very upset.
Yeah, but like in a fun way. Oh, and I like Ty Lee's continued recurring subplot of being attracted to Sokka, and when she's fighting him, she's still like playfully like, "Look, it's like we're dancing together." Like that was like genuinely funny to me. In this horribly terrifying episode about the crumbling collapse of what remained of a once peaceful society, even though that peace was itself a lie.
I'm sure that's a funny moment, but it's also, I don't know, that I find that disturbing.
Well, it is because she doesn't realize like
because it's like you're fighting for your life,
situation.
and you're fighting for your life, and it's a game to the other person.
Yeah, I mean, Ty Lee is scary in a lot of ways.
Well, Ty Lee's like the least scary of that group because she had to be like kind of forced into going.
Yeah. I mean, because like May is definitely more like the Daria of the group, right? Like
May's got knives.
There's a funniness to her a dark comedy to like her attitude, but yeah, she is also like wielding knives all the time and trying to stab everyone.
Yeah.
Whereas Ty Lee is like, that's like a traditional cartoon character almost, who also happens to be a master assassin.
Yeah, he's good at blocking your chi or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
She should have just stayed with the circus.
She should have, but
Azula,
then
you jerk.
maybe Azula would have like actually murdered her or something.
Yeah, that's awful. That's awful.
Yeah. Not a great friend.
Azula's a bad friend. Not to go out on a limb here, but Azula's a bad friend. And I guess you do. I mean, that's that age where you will stick around a friend even though they suck, and then at some point you're like, wait a minute.
Is that all we have to talk about this episode? Like, it's so good. I don't want to miss anything, but
yeah, I think it's just there's nothing we can really say, like, because the episode kind of speaks for itself. So I think if you watched it, you got everything out of it.
Yeah, because again, I didn't even bring it up at the beginning of this episode because we had so much else to talk about, but like, we're assuming you've watched these episodes, so I hope that kind of takes care of it a little bit.
Other than the Earth Kingdom, like, legit falls, like, we're just nuts. Like, so now it's like, not only did the good thing not happen, but actually everything's gotten significantly worse.
Yeah, and to go back to this might be more fucked up than Empire thing, there's no like, oh, okay, but there's still hope because they're together. No, Aang like basically died for like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Iroh's captured. Earth Kingdom's gone. The only like group of resistance that we've seen now is from leftover groupings of the Water Tribe.
Yes.
And that's it.
Yeah, not a great group.
Mm-hmm. And some pockets of friends that they made along the way, but like it's very clear that there's almost like no hope left here. It's bad. Basically. It's not looking good.
Nothing's good. Everything's bad.
Can't relate. Ha.
Nah.
Anyways, so that's book 2.
Yes, it was.
What a remarkable season of television.
I know, it's great. I know we didn't talk about as much this time as we usually do, but that's kind of just because there's, what are we going to say?
Yeah, no, book 2 is one of the best seasons of television, like bar none for me. Like it's just so good. Yeah, I've talked about it for like at least 4 hours now over these recordings, so I'm just gonna let that also speak for itself. Next time we'll be starting book 3, Fire, and we'll be going over the first 5 episodes. Chapter 1, The Awakening, The Headband, The Painted Lady, Sokka's Master, and The Beach. Oh, and I want to give a shout out to Lauren McMullen, whose last episode was Lake Laogai. She will not return in the next season. And I just wanted to shout her out because
What a
I think we brought up
bunch
she
of
was the
bullshit.
only female director on this series. And she did, the last episode she did was Lake Laogai, and she's a remarkable animated director. She did some of my favorite episodes of the series, and yeah, fantastic work from her. I hope she's doing good.
Without asking too much, is there a reason why she didn't return?
I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I guess I'd have to look into that a little more. Or a lot more, because I don't think there's too much on her.
It looks like the next season pretty much everyone's back, except her. I mean, maybe she got an offer to do something. She's at Disney now.
Oh, is she?
She did an Academy Award nominated film for Disney, short.
Oh, okay. Oh, Get a Horse.
Yeah.
Featuring Mickey Mouse.
It was like the first Mickey Mouse thing in forever.
Yeah.
But I don't know what she's doing currently.
I don't know. A lot of animated projects, they just take like an insane amount of time to develop. So maybe she's got stuff in development,
Well, I just went on her IMDb, and the last credited thing is Get a Horse, and there's like nothing after that. As directed, let's check. Nope. All right, she worked on Ralph Breaks the Internet as a story artist.
Okay. Because sometimes IMDb and Wikipedia don't have everything they're doing,
Yeah.
So hopefully there's more going on for her, because she's very, very talented director.
Yes.
I mean, look, you direct something as beautiful as Zuko Alone in the Desert, like, I'm gonna basically, like, support you wherever you go. So, thank you, Lauren McMullen.
Oh, she was supposed to work on Newt. Remember Newt?
For those that don't know, Newt was the canceled Pixar film. Or one of the canceled Pixar films from, like, the last decade, right?
I think it's the only one they ever really canceled. Oh, like, Disney canceled that, they were going to do a new Jack and the Beanstalk story.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And they really hyped it, and then they just, like, were like, we're not doing that now.
Mm-hmm.
Which is weird. You don't normally see that.
Yeah.
Because normally stuff is, like, quietly canceled. And, like, Newt was canceled because it was, like, they were having trouble with it, and then they... Like there was that other story that basically had the exact same plot. And so they're like, we might as well not do it. But then that one just, I don't know, that's weird. Fuck Disney. I don't care. No, they should stop.
Yeah, but that's it for book 2. Remarkable. We're done now. Matt, where can the people find you?
I'm at EmperorOTN1 at Twitter.com.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay. And you can follow
me
at
If I'm doing anything
Diego
else,
Crespo.
I will update it on Twitter.
Okay. At the Diego Crespo at Twitter.com. And check out the Waffle Press on Twitter, as well as YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, Patreon. I probably missed something, but that's okay. It links down to everything on the YouTube and SoundCloud. So again, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We have been professionally unprofessional.